please be seated. Counsel, please present your opening argument.
Your Honor, the plaintiff brought this case to the court because the prosecution charged the defendant with the two-part offense. The first part was for stealing a motor vehicle, and the second part was for driving away with stolen property and crashing it, causing destruction to the city. Now, the defendant claims he did not take the vehicle and pleads not guilty, even though there's evidence against him.
Thank you. Please be seated. Counsel for defendant, please present your opening argument.
Your Honor, my client was wrongfully charged with this offense. The night that the vehicle was stolen, my client was out of town on a business trip, so there's no possible way my client could have stolen the vehicle.
Thank you. Please be seated. Counsel, please present any evidence that you may have.
Your Honor, I would like to call on Robert Barnes, a postman of Salem, Oregon, to the witness booth. Mr. Barnes saw the defendant driving the stolen car and also saw Mr. Smith crash the car into a fire hydrant. Mr. Barnes also saw Mr. Smith fleeing the scene after the crash.
Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Barnes, please present your witness statement.
Your Honor, at 11:30 exactly, I was walking my dog and I saw Mr. John Smith hitting the car to this fire hydrant. And when I went closer, my dog was very upset. He was trying to break his leash, and I checked the time because I was going to go and call 911, but on my iPhone, when I looked at it, it was exactly 11:30. So I seen Mr. John Smith after he hit the car to this fire hydrant, he ran.
Counsel for the defendant, please present your evidence.
Your Honor, I have the invitation of the business trip for Mr. Smith. Additionally, I also have a printout from the hotel used by Smith's company that proved John Smith used a room that night.
The court would like to take some time to review the evidence for both sides. We will adjourn and we will meet again. If you have any problems, you may see my court clerk. That is all for today. The court is adjourned.
Okay.
What would you look at?
All right. Well, first of all, eyewitness testimony sometimes is not your best testimony, because eyewitness testimony, maybe the person viewing the scene or viewing the incident is excited or excitable, and their recollection of matters might not be as accurate as drawing inferences. So maybe they were excited when they saw a crash, or maybe they were in the house. Where were they immediately prior to observing the car crash?
They were on the sidewalk. They were walking on the sidewalk and saw him crash to the fire hydrant.
Were they almost hit?
No.
Were they across the street?
Right.
So these are the considerations. How excited or excitable was the circumstance in which that observation was made under? And it might affect the ability of the person who's making those perceptions. It might affect their clarity and their recollection of the facts as they remember them. Now, direct evidence, that's eyewitness evidence. Direct evidence is what we classically think of as the best evidence. But is it really? Because circumstantial evidence merely means that you have inferences that are logical in nature and that you can draw a conclusion. Right? That's also equally admissible in a court of law. So what you'll often hear is you'll hear in this instance, you'll hear people say, well, that's only circumstantial evidence. It's not direct evidence. Well, they're both entitled to equal access in the courtroom.
Thank you. Please be seated. Counsel, do you have any closing statements you'd like to present?
Your Honor, as stated before, Mr. John Smith is guilty. We had a witness come and testify, and he had seen Mr. Smith drive the car to the fire hydrant and flee the scene. That is all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Counsel for the defendant, is there anything you'd like to say?
Your Honor, my client is innocent. As you know, on the night of the scene, my client was on a business trip, and the hotel confirmed that he checked into his room. That is all.
Thank you. Based on all of the evidence given by both sides, I have decided that John Smith will be charged 1 year in jail, and he will have to pay $15,000 to the city of Salem in Oregon. That is all for today. The court is adjourned.